The Fortnite competitive off-season has been going on for over 6 months, but finally it is coming to a close. In 3 weeks time, FNCS will be starting. So today I want to go over all the biggest winners and the biggest losers from the off-season, as well as crowning the ultimate winner and the ultimate loser at the end of the video. Let's get straight into it. So here's the timeline for the off-season. As you can see, it has comprised of 3 different seasons. We had the second half of Chapter 6 Season 4 straight after Globals. We've also had the Simpsons mini-season and of course Chapter 7 Season 1. Across all of those seasons we've had 12 divisional cups, 6 of them being in Chapter 6 and 6 of them being in Chapter 7. We've also had 2 iterations of the solo series via Razorland. We've had countless victory cups. Honestly, for an off-season it's been pretty busy. So let's start off by talking about Queasy and Merstach, and this is a duo that have struggled a little bit over the past few months. Now listen, a lot of people will say that the off-season doesn't matter too much, that we shouldn't judge players too heavily on their performances, and usually I wouldn't disagree with that too much, but this off-season has been super long. I mean, we've had 6 months, and at the end of the day, with the top players, with the best in the world, we need to see them making progress during that period, and some of these players haven't really made any improvements. And honestly, I do think Queasy and Merstach are an example of 2 players that have really regressed. Obviously they did win globals, so you have to cut them a bit of slack. They had an excellent end to 2025 and I can't give them enough credit for that, but since then it has been a bit lacking. Now listen, I've been a fan of Queasy for a long time, way before it was cool. I remember the trenches of Shxrk season when he came 30th with Milan and Chapix. I remember celebrating when he won FNCS with Trulex and Jerky. So understand that these criticisms are coming from someone that can respect Queasy's ability and legacy in the game. The big issue he's had lately is that he's been bouncing between duos, which honestly should be really good on paper, and none of them are working out. He's played with Velo, he's played with Th0masHD, Fredoxie, he's played with Swizzy, Rax, and now Merstach. I mean, these are all insanely good players, and he hasn't really looked good with any of them, which is a bit of a concern. And look, I know that historically Queasy hasn't performed that well in the off-season, but he's always turned it around for the FNCSs. However, we've just had 6 months. I mean, this is longer than the off-season we've had previously. So I do think we need to be a little bit more alarmed that he isn't doing well. What's more, FNCS starts in only 3 weeks time, and that is something to bear in mind with all the players I talk about in this video. You have to appreciate that some of these guys haven't been placing for 6 months and they only have weeks to turn it around. I mean, that is a proper challenge. We will need to see an immediate improvement from him in Season 2. And listen, once again, I know he won globals. It's a huge achievement and naturally he won't be as hungry, he won't be as locked in after it. But that excuse is only good for a month or 2. In Chapter 7 Season 1, he hasn't been at the races at all. He only made 1 out of the 6 Divisional Cup finals this season and he was only able to manage 37th place. So it's just not been great for him. In Chapter 6 Season 4, he made 2 out of the 6 finals, but was unable to get a top 10 finish. So that's a total of 3 out of 12. It was the same for Merstach. He managed to qualify for 3 out of the 12 Divisional Cup finals, but he didn't even manage a top 20 in any of them. So listen, both of these guys just have been struggling. With Merstach, he simply hasn't been locked in playing the game. During Chapter 6 Season 4, he was missing countless Divisional Cups. In the last 5 weeks of the Divisional Cup finals, he only made 1 of them and he came in last place in that, only playing out 1 game. He wasn't even queuing for the Open sometimes. It just wasn't really what we'd expect of a champion. I can appreciate that he just won globals, but in truth the performances haven't really gotten better since then. He's been with Tayson, Vanya and Queasy now, and again he just hasn't really looked great with any of them. But listen, let's stay positive. Yes, they've had a poor 6 months. Yes, it hasn't been what they would have hoped for, but we do know that these are players that can turn it around when FNCS comes around. They are going to be on 0 ping. They are looking for a new coach. Let's see if they lock in. Let's see if they can turn it around. We'll see how they get on. Now let's discuss a team that were really good during the off season. They are of course Sky and Scroll. Now these guys did struggle a little bit during 2025. They weren't the best in trios. They failed to qualify for the global championship, but since duos has returned they have looked so good. Interestingly Seemingly they initially split right at the beginning of the off-season. Sky dropped Skrull for Marius, but they quickly got back together once Sky realised his mistake, because his chemistry of Skrull is so good. I would argue that they have the best chemistry of any duo in the world right now. They're always on the same page when they play. They operate as a unit. They are so good. And listen, the performances have really been there, especially in Chapter 7 Season 1. They started off strong, winning the $1 million Unreal Cup. They won 2 of the 6 divisional cups. They also qualified for every final and didn't finish outside of the top 10 once. This level of consistency is just incredible, and a lot of that is down to their game plan. They were landing at Battlewood Boulevard, and their strategies worked very well. They would often stay late and sit in the storm to avoid taking damage, so that they'd always be ahead on Surge. Often they build bases on the pylons in the POI in the early game in order to get tags. Later on in the season, they also used balloons to elevate themselves high up into the sky so that they could do longer wingsuit rotates. They had everything figured out in this season. Skrull especially was really good from an individual standpoint. He of course won the January solo series, an enormous achievement from him, and one that has made him the highest earning EU player of 2026 so far. These guys are an example of what can happen if you continue to work hard during the off season. They've put in the time and they have the rewards, and I do genuinely believe that they can win an FNCS major this year. They do have what it takes. Another team that has been great during the off season is Shxrk T3eny. It's ridiculous how much these guys have achieved in the past few months. I'll just read through their accolades now. They won 3 divisional cups, 2 of those coming in Chapter 6, 1 of them in Chapter 7. Shxrk won the Nvidia Solo Cup by over 150 points, an absolutely dominant performance from him. He also had the most eliminations and the most damage across all the divisional cups this season, and he has the second most earnings in 2026. And as for T3eny, he's been just as successful. He won the solo series back in October. He also came second at the Eraser LAN, and had the tournament not been cancelled early, he potentially could have won that too. He earned over 40k in Chapter 6 Season 4 after missing out on globals, so that was a really good time for him. Listen, these are 2 players that are incredibly hungry. They both missed out on globals last year, so they really have a point to prove, and the way they've performed this season has been so impressive. They've been landing over at Wonky Land, and they were able to condition that whole northwest corner of the map. They had so much territory to themselves because all the teams around them were scared they would get W keyed, so their aura was off the charts. I mean, listen, these guys also double qualified for the Esports World Cup. They won both of the EWC finals. I mean, that's an insane achievement. They also came second in the PlayStation Reload Cup, showing that across both modes they really do have what it takes. And just like Sky and Skrull, these guys can surely pick up an FNCS major win this year. They're looking so explosive. Their fighting ability is insane, and honestly, I don't even have the words to describe how good they are. In the 6-month off season, Shxrk has gone from being regarded as a prospect that wasn't quite ready for the top level to one of the best players on the entire region. His improvement has been ridiculous, and it's honestly scary to think where he might be in a couple of years when he does hit his prime. He's already silenced a lot of the doubters. All he needs now is a top placement in an FNCS Grands, and honestly, I do think that's coming. Now, the off season came at a great time for Shxrk. It was an opportunity for him to lock in, to prove himself, and to work hard whilst other people weren't. For some players though, off season couldn't have come at a worse time, and Fredoxie is an example of that. His stocks were sky high after globals. He came off that major free win, winning his first ever FNCS. He then came 7th place in globals, all whilst being contested, being the most aggressive team in the lobby by a mile. They even dropped a 19 kill win. I mean, after that tournament, he was the guy. Everyone wanted to learn from him. He was doing so well. He even did win the first divisional cup of Chapter 6 Season 4 with Chino, so he was doing well straight after globals. And then he got dropped, and it all kind of fell apart from there. Chino went off to play with Velo, which obviously didn't end up working out. Fredoxie went off to play with Pablo. That also didn't work out. They took a long break. Pablo ended up going and playing with Chino, which left Fredoxie looking for a duo, and that's kind of where he's been ever since. He's not really placed in quite a while. He's been bouncing between different Danish teammates, not able to settle with anyone. It's just been a bit mediocre. I appreciate that he probably hasn't been that locked into the game. I think he's been doing other things, but from the player that we saw after globals, the talent he had, the form he was in, And to see that all kind of fade away is a bit of a shame, because we know the potential that he has. And if he does lock in again, then I do believe he can get back to his best, but he's going to need to put the work in. And honestly, the way this all played out is quite unlucky. It was harsh that he got dropped by Chino after literally winning the first tournament, but that is just how Fortnite goes sometimes. You have to bounce back, you have to kick on. He has played with a bunch of different duos too. He was with Tayson for a bit, Queasy as well, and he just couldn't make it work. I do hope we see Fredoxie get back to his best. It looks like he's going to be playing with Sanguild as things stand, but maybe if there are some duo splits, he might be able to get a better option. We'll have to see how that goes. But it's fair to say that Fredoxie's perception has really taken a hit over the past few months. Th0masHD and Focus are examples of players that have been winners from the off-season. Now, interestingly, they both started out quite slow. Th0masHD was of course with Queasy, and they just didn't really look too good together, not really living up to the performances of Chapter 5. We also had Focus bounce between a ton of different teammates. He played with Pixx, Vidil, Mr. Savage, Scroll and Haris before he finally settled with Thomas, and since then they've been looking really good. Clearly they do work well together. They won their second ever divisional cup in Chapter 6 Season 4. Since then they have won another divisional cup. They have been proving that they can do well in these set lobby finals. The only issue they have is that they haven't made the Esports World Cup yet, but I'm sure that will come in time. We do still have 6 European spots left, and I'm sure they could get one of those. Listen, I also want to give big credit to Focus, because he has really established himself as one of the top mechanical fighters in EU, one of the best creative players. He's gone from someone that was, let's face it, a filler player at Globals. He was only able to finish 20th with Mixon and Uppel, and now he is one of the top players on the region, showing what you can achieve during the off-season, showing why it is important to stay locked in. And let's not forget that Focus has been IGLing this team as well, so he definitely deserves a lot of credit. It will be interesting to see how these guys get on next season. One player that has struggled is Vanya. He was coming off an excellent 2025, first and third in the majors, and then second at Globals. He was being regarded by many as one of the top players in EU. Certainly people were saying that he was the best player on his trio, which I did disagree with at the time. I felt like Pixie was better, but nonetheless the stocks for Vanya were very high, and he just hasn't been able to have the placements. He's been playing with top pros, he's been with Swizzy and then Merstach and then Wox, and he hasn't really done well with any of them. And at a certain point you do have to see him as the common denominator, especially since he is the IGL, since those players are following his game plan, and the placements just haven't been there. He's currently with Wox, but I don't have a lot of confidence that this duo is going to stick. I do feel like if other options become available, we might see Vanya switch. With only 3 weeks until the FNCS play-ins, will he be able to come back to his best? We'll have to wait and see. And another player that hasn't had the off-season he would have wanted is Mongraal. Listen, we do have to have lower expectations for Mongraal. I'm not saying he should be qualifying for every single divisional cup and doing really well in all of them, but he hasn't really been doing much lately at all. He's played with a bunch of people, Marco, Mixon, Savage and now Turtle. This season he's failed to qualify for any of the divisional cup finals, which just isn't up to standard. Ideally he should be making some of those finals. If he is going to be a player that will contend to make an FNCS Grands, then he needs to be getting into that top 50 way more consistently. With only a few weeks until FNCS, I don't think he is going to make the next major Grand Finals. I'm not sure he'll be able to improve enough in time in order to reach that threshold. Now let's discuss Vico Malibuca, and this is a team that left it a little bit late, but I would say that they have been winners from the off season. They did start out Chapter 7 Season 1 a little bit slow, but they ended it in absolute style, getting 2 second places in the divisional cups before winning the final one of the season. They had an excellent strategy. They would build their mega ramp off the North Mountain, and they would sit there in the storm, avoid taking damage, and then they could wingsuit right off the top of the ramp at a crazy elevation in order to make a long rotate into the zone. They had everything figured out, and they did get their reward in the final week. They've also qualified for the Esports World Cup, so it has been a good period for them overall. Vico in particular has been dominating the Osarion stats. I constantly see him at the top of the leaderboards for damage and eliminations. He's been very, very explosive lately. Also big credit to Malibuca. He qualified for the most Evaluation Cup finals this season out of any player, making 10 out of a possible 13. mean? Listen, these guys have a lot of quality and I've got no doubts that they're going to do well for the rest of the year. The only issue I have is that their performances have been very dependent on their current strategy, which obviously involves the mountain, involves the wingsuits. And in the new season, those items are going to be gone. The wingsuit isn't going to be a thing, so we'll have to see if they can adapt to the new meta, if they can continue their form. But honestly, with the quality they have, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. Akiira and Kurama are a team that have been great over the past few months. They did fail to make globals. Obviously, we had no French teams at the Lyon LAN, but I think these guys are 100% going to make the next one because they have looked so good. Their consistency has been ridiculous. They've earned in basically all the victory cups across all the regions. We also had Kurama win the PlayStation Solo Cup back in February. He also did great in the October Solo Series, winning the Opens round. I do believe that if Kurama had existed a couple of years prior to now, he would have done so much better. He would have earned so much money when we did have a ton of solo tournaments, when we had the Dream Hacks, the solo FNCSs, a lot more third-party cups. He would have earned so much money because he is ridiculously good at that game mode. But listen, let's give credit to Akiira too. He's been great this year so far. These guys obviously have a lot of chemistry. They did actually split for a week not that long ago, but they quickly got back together once they realized that they are such a great fit. With the consistency these guys have shown over the past few months, they are 100% the best French duo in the world right now, and for sure they're the biggest French hope of making the global championships. Now I want to talk about two players that have been massively on the come up lately. They are Velo and King Cringe. Both of them have been brilliant during the off season. For a large portion of it, they were actually playing together and they were earning in practically every single event possible, especially the victory cups. They secured a lot of wins in those. They didn't actually stick as a duo, and the reason for that is because of their vibes. They just couldn't seem to get on when they were playing. That did lead to Velo ending up with Mr. Savage, and that, I have to say, is a very bright looking duo. It's still in its infancy, but they have both looked very good. They've qualified for the only 2 divisional cups they've queued up together, and they finished inside the top half in both of those finals. Listen, Velo is looking like one for the future. I've mentioned this in a bunch of my previous videos if you want to go back, that I do feel like he is one of the best prospects we have. He is a very good fighter, someone who works well with Savage because of the dynamic. Savage can just IGL and Velo can play for him. It's nice to see performances from the off-season rewarded. Velo's audition was the victory cups and he got the part by playing with Mr. Savage. They are looking good. Let's see how they get on. In terms of his old duo King Cringe, he was also very good. He was in first place after day 1 of the January solo series. He was using a fishing strategy in order to sit in the storm. He'd fish the mythic pistol and that would be the only item in his inventory. He'd then come to zone late, having survived most of the surge because he didn't take too much damage. It was a strategy that did work. Day 2 wasn't as good, but that was still a good tournament for him, and of course that proves his ability. He is now playing with Twy and they look very good too. They won the first game of the divisional cup the other day. Listen, King Cringe is another one of those players that has clearly worked hard, clearly put the time in, and I'm glad to see him getting the rewards. Between Velo and King Cringe, they only have one FNCS Grands qualification. That was Cringe's, and it was all the way back in Chapter 5. Listen, that is 100% going to change this year. These guys will be making some grand finals. Could they qualify for the Summit LAN? I certainly think it's on the cards. My last loser from the off season might feel like a bit of a harsh one. I've chosen Pixx. Now, he was obviously very good in 2025 with Dom and Th0masHD. They were an excellent trio in their breakout year, getting a 3rd and a 5th place in the FNCS majors before coming 6th at globals, a placement that, had they not been keyed in game 12, would have been much higher as well. But listen, 3's an awkward number, and when we switch to duos, there's always one player that's going to be left out, and unfortunately that was Pixx, and he has suffered an endless roulette of teammates. I'll put a list up on the screen now, but you can see it's just endless, the amount of players he's played with, and just not been able to settle, not been able to make it stick. And that's why I do have to regard him as a loser, not because his performances have been terrible, they've not been great by any means, but the fact that he's just not been able to find that committed duo when we only have 3 weeks until FNCS is really going to affect him. Unless he stumbles across the right teammate very soon, it's not looking great for Pixx. We all know his qualities as a player, we all know he is capable of making the Summit LAN, but he's going to need to find the right fit. Before I reveal my biggest winner and loser from the off-season, I want to talk about one more player, and that is one that you may not have heard of before. He is a Polish up-and-comer called Foczka, and this guy was very good throughout the off-season. He was winning a lot of victory cups with his old duo Trucio. They were looking really good together. They did split, which was a real shock to me because I just couldn't understand why. I mean, they were placing so high, they were qualifying for divisional cups, they were earning a lot, and seemingly out of nowhere they decided to call it quits. But listen, since then Foczka has upgraded. He was initially playing with Adrix and they looked good too. Now Foczka is playing with Th0mas, and Th0mas is a top pro as well. He obviously played with Giras and Franek last year. Foczka and Th0mas is a Polish team with a lot of firepower, and they are one that we really need to watch out for in 2026. Foczka's biggest achievement of the off-season was having the most combined points across all 4 weeks of the solo series opens in January. A properly big achievement when you think about how many top quality solo players there are in EU. He finished above Vico, Sky, Shxrk, Kurama. Very impressive stuff. He is a name that we will be hearing about more in the very near future. So here is my biggest winner and biggest loser from the off season. Now it does feel a little bit harsh giving out a biggest loser award, but I do think there's a positive spin on it. I do think it's Queasy, and a lot of the reason for that is because he started at such a high. He was literally the global champion, and honestly it's kind of hard to go up from there, so I do have a little bit of sympathy for him. However, the divisional cup placements haven't been there. He's been bouncing between duos, not being able to settle. It's just been a very turbulent 6 months for him, and with FNCS being such a short turnaround, I do worry a little bit for him. However, as I mentioned earlier in the video, this is Queasy we're talking about here. He is someone that can just turn up at a grand finals after not playing the game properly for ages and just perform, because he knows what to do. He's done it so many times, he has the experience. So yes, he is my biggest loser of the off season, but I don't think he's consigned to failure. I do think he could turn it around. Now, in terms of my biggest winner, there were a lot of players to choose from. My honourable mentions are Sky, Shxrk and T3eny. They were very close, but of course my choice is Shxrk, because he has completely shifted the narrative around him, from not qualifying to globals after coming second in all 3 games of the last chance qualifier, to winning 3 divisional cups, to winning the Nvidia Cup, to qualifying for the Esports World Cup twice by winning both finals, to having the most damage and elims in the Div Cups out of any player, to having the second most earnings in EU for 2026. Shxrk has just been on a different level. Gone are the days where he was a prospect, someone that only looked good for the future. He is now the present. He is a top pro in EU. The last 6 months have been exceptional, and I'm very excited to see how he does in 2026. I do believe that at least one of those FNCS majors will have his name on it. Let me know your biggest winner and loser from the off season in the comments below. I'm very interested to hear what you all think. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these kind of European Fortnite videos. If you want to support me any further, then using code SPUDSON in the Fortnite item shop is a great way to do that. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.